Hey, welcome to our 7th Showcase Tuesday. Tonight we'll be talking about vocational service. That is Rotary's second avenue of service. Its purpose is to promote high ethical standards in business and professions, recognize the worthiness of all dignified occupations, and foster the ideal of service in the pursuit of all vocations. But vocational service is much more. Applying professional skills to Rotary community, speaking openly and honestly, and following the code of conduct in the 4-way test. Tonight, we will record this session. Please mute yourselves during the presentations. You may unmute yourself and ask questions after each speaker presents, or in the case of the Learning Committee, wait till, I guess they're all done speaking. If you don't want to be heard, please enter your question in the chat box. Our Learning Committee Chair, Gwen Carr, will pose your questions from the chat box if you like. So I'm going to ask some questions. Did you ever notice that Rotary membership is based on classification of vocations? Did you ever notice that vocational service isn't often discussed, but underlies almost all we do as Rotarians? Did you ever notice that some of Rotary's most significant changes are expressed in how we treat vocational service? Tonight, we'll hear about practical applications of vocational service in our jobs, clubs, communities, and our lives. Lou, could you run the PowerPoint, please?
All right.
So it gives me a lot of pleasure to introduce the people who will be speaking tonight. First, from our Learning Committee, Marlene Heller, Amy Scheller, and Lou Batita. Tell you a little bit about each one. Marlene knew from childhood that she wanted to be a writer. She graduated from Monmouth College and served as the chief editor for the Jewish Star. In New Jersey, she wrote a book about learning differences of special education students. She moved to Wisconsin, where she served as director of marketing and communication for a group of senior living facilities called Ovation Communities. She's the chair of the Public Image Committee of the Allentown West Rotary Club and volunteers at the Lehigh Valley Health Network, serving to help young children. Our second speaker tonight is Amy Scheller. She's the co-owner of Abominable Productions, a video production company based in Kutztown, with a focus on cinematic storytelling. She has a BFA in related arts from Kutztown University. She's been filming corporate films, weddings, dance, and theatrical productions since 2002. Her story-driven work has won her several international awards. Is everyone muted? Luke, could you mute yourself?
Yep.
So anyway, she's done a great job for the district as well. She's a Kutztown Rotarian and member of the member and served as our club president for 2 years. She's currently the Area 3 Assistant Governor on the District Public Image Committee and the Learning Committee. She's used her vocation of video production to produce the monthly district video message that we all enjoy, district public image challenges, and promote her club fundraisers. She's done a terrific job. She believes that using video to educate, inspire, and tell our stories can help us expand our reach and grow Rotary. Lou Batita, our third member from the Learning Committee, graduated from King's College in math and did graduate work at Lehigh University in IT. He's a, Lou, I'm going to try this word, pro-tired information technology professional with over 40 years of systems development, technology planning, systems implementations, and management experience. His healthcare IT experience includes systems integration, medical claims processing, and many other things. Since retirement from the Lehigh Valley Health Network in 2017, he's been using these skills for Rotary, Community Bike Works, and the Batita Busfield team of Lehigh Valley home experts. Over the last 25 years, he's helped the team progress from a mortgage calculator era to the digital realtor age. He serves as our District 7430 Public Image Chair and is co-president of the Allentown Rotary Club. Our second presentation will come from Speaker Tom Cole. Tom's the president of the Kutztown Rotary Club. He graduated from Penn State University, yay, and Kutztown University. He spent the last 30 years working in the supply chain field for numerous corporations. He served 12 years through the Boy Scouts of America as a Cub Master and Assistant Scout Leader. He's the proud father of 2 Eagle Scouts. Tom is also secretary of the Kutztown Rotary Charitable Foundation. So let's begin with our learning committee members, Lou Batita, Amy Scheller, and Marlene Heller.
Lou, we need you to unmute.
Thank you. I'm going to lead off for our team of presenters, and our subject title for tonight has changed a little bit. If anybody has been paying attention in the last week, we sort of started with why is vocational service important, and morphed a little bit into maybe a more passionate title of what vocational service means to us. But the goal of tonight's topic and presentation hasn't changed. And we are really hoping to spark some new vocational service ideas among tonight's attendees. January is Vocational Service Month, and I really don't know why Rotary International picked January, but I'm going to speculate a little bit that maybe it's because January is a time for us to set resolutions. And it would be great if coming out of tonight's meeting, some of us were able to set some new resolutions about our personal, professional, and club service. In particular, in this particular slide, it shows kind of the major Rotary International concepts and themes around vocational service. I'm going to key in on a little word there that says all useful occupations. As we were preparing for this presentation, we had a little bit of discussion about that, and the question, aren't all occupations useful? And we determined that maybe, drug dealer, computer hacker, lifeguard at the Summer Olympics, those probably are not real useful. But almost everyone that is involved, hopefully everybody involved in Rotary, has great skills and experience that they bring to the table. At an individual level, what does vocational service ask of Rotarians? It asks us to have high ethical standards, to recognize the worthiness of all, that word, useful occupations, contribute their talents, and encourage others to serve through vocations and their talents. In the introduction, Bob was saying that vocational service underlines so many other aspects of Rotary. Prior to this presentation, I didn't realize that there were 5 avenues of service. This graph shows them all. Although vocational service is at the top, I would suggest that really it should be in the center, because we bring our vocational service and experience into club service, community service, youth service, and international service. What can we do this month? Plan and act. January is a time when we should focus on vocational service. We can plan and begin vocational service activities for the year. We can plan what's going to be done at the club and community needs level, and Rotarians can use their professional skills in so many different service projects during 2022. At this point, I'm going to pass the baton over to Amy.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So vocational service and Rotary really emphasizes integrity and high ethical standards. And they do it with two standards that were developed by Rotarians, the 4-way test and the Rotarian Code of Conduct. Both of those standards provide a roadmap for ethical behavior in our professional lives and in our personal lives. And Marlene's going to talk a little bit more about the 4-way test, but I want to give a little history of the 4-way test. It was developed and conceived by Herbert J. Taylor in 1932, a Rotary member in Chicago. He also served as Rotary International president in 1954 to 55. He was given the task of saving a company from bankruptcy. And he developed a test as an ethical guide to follow in all business matters. And the company's survival was credited to this simple philosophy. It was later adopted by Rotary International in 1934, and the four-way test remains an essential standard which Rotarians measure ethical behavior. It's been translated into dozens of languages and promoted by Rotarians worldwide. And you can see it being used in club meetings and also in our four-way speech contest and many other ways throughout our Rotary lives. And we can go to the next slide. So how do we demonstrate these ethical standards? And the four-way test really guides us. Open and honest communication, to treat people fairly and with dignity, to encourage diversity of opinions, to recognize and reward achievements. And you're going to hear a little bit about that in the second half of our program with a really fantastic vocational service project, and to be accountable for our own actions. Next slide, Lou. So the Rotarian Code of Conduct provides a framework for ethical behavior that all Rotarians can use. Together with the four-way test in their business and professional activities, as part of Rotary's guiding principles and the avenues of service, vocational service calls on Rotarians to empower others by using their unique skills and expertise to address community needs and to help others discover new professional opportunities and interests. So we can go to the next slide, Lou. So we're going to get a lot of great ideas of how you can use vocational service throughout this presentation. There's a couple more here on this slide here, but with Rotary and using our vocational service, we can serve at local and international projects to help teach others entrepreneurial skills and technical skills. There's vocational training programs that Rotary sponsors. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about club classification talks later on. But also meeting at different club members' places of business encourages vocational service, ethics sessions in youth leaderships, bringing young people to your place of business and recognizing and celebrating vocations. And we're going to hear a little bit more in depth on a couple of those. So we'll go to the next slide. Vocational service really is important because it's what we do and our skills that help us solve the problems that Rotary is looking to solve in our communities. And it really brings about our best selves. It helps us recognize the best in others as well, too. It's also a great opportunity for young professionals, too. And we'll talk more about that, too, with classification talks. But I'm going to pass it on now to Marlene. Oh, I think you're muted, Marlene.
Thank you. Okay, so Lou, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So when I was in school in the 60s and 70s, rote memorization was the way to learn. By the time my children were in school in the 80s and 90s, educators had realized that hands-on learning and experiential learning were much more conducive to retaining what you learned. Is that the truth? It sure is. Around the time of changeover 2 pandemic years ago, Allentown West Rotary put this into practice with the four-way test. Previously, we simply recited the test, as shown on the left side of this slide. But how did we know anyone actually used the test in practical matters? So we changed things around and moved to the right side of this slide, where we each became four-way test superheroes. Next slide, Lou. Everybody has a decision to make every day. You have to make a choice in your decision. So what kind of decisions do you make? You make personal choices and you make professional. So we asked people to apply the four-way test to these choices every day in their work week or their personal lives, and then at the next meeting, report back to the club on how it made a difference in their daily lives. Some weeks, 3 or 4 people volunteered, and some weeks, nobody did. And if no one else stepped up, then I might start out with something from my own week. Usually, something from my own work week, or if I had to resort to something my grandchildren did, but something that would break the ice. And then someone else would step up and say, oh yes, I remember now, I had something. And that might break the ice, and 2 or 3 other people might step up. We also found some great music. If you search the internet for the 4-way test, you'll find that there are great songs around the 4-way test that you can use to introduce this to your club. And that got us all in the mood. And I am happy to report that it was fair to all concerned, and it definitely led to goodwill and better friendships. Back to you, Amy.
Thank you, Marlene. So Lou, you can go to the next slide, where we're going to talk a little bit about classification talks, and just kind of a raise of hand, how many people did a classification talk when they first joined Rotary? I think it looks like almost, I'm kind of scrolling through, just about everyone that has their video on. Awesome. Yeah, so classification talks were, originally developed to tell the club about your profession. It has since kind of really expanded into talking about your interests, then also outside of your business profession, because a lot of us, we all wear many hats in our lives. We're passionate about many things. We have skills that are beyond just what we do for a living. So classification talks have expanded into not only what you do for your profession, but also what you're passionate about, your personal life. And it's designed to be a brief 3 to 5 minute talk. Traditionally, for new members or transferees, give a classification talk. And it was really used to acquaint Rotarians with the member's profession, but it's really become a great opportunity to learn about the Rotarian and all of their passions. One of the great things too that I've heard being an AG for Area 3 is that one of the clubs introduced mini classification talks. So these were not just for new members, but seasoned members who had been in the club for a long time would take 1 to 2 minutes to stand up and kind of reintroduce themselves, maybe talk about if something new happened into their lives. But this was a great way too, because a lot of times in Rotary clubs, new members give the classification talk, whereas the seasoned members get to listen and take in all that information, but the new members don't always get to hear about the seasoned members that have been there a while. So I thought that was a great idea of doing mini classification talks for everybody, just 1 to 2 minutes, a couple each sprinkled out through the meeting. I think it's a great way to reintroduce people to who they are and what they're passionate about. But classification talks are also a great way for networking. They're great for young professionals, as it can give an opportunity to grow their public speaking and also build their professional network. A lot of times Rotarians join Rotary because they're new to a community and they want to connect to the community and get to know they own a business and they really want to connect to the community and give back. So classification talks are a great way to start that conversation into bigger opportunities, whether that's through their vocation or through service there with the Rotary Club. And when I first joined Rotary, my sponsor, he told me, Rotary is not really a networking group per se, but you really get to learn who the person is, and that's why you want to support them in their profession or in their lives. So I thought that was a really kind of meaningful way to build a network and a community connection. So next slide.
All right. I will pick it back up from here and close out our part of the presentation. I have the privilege of talking about how we use our professions for vocational service, and I'm going to try and show some kind of creative examples. I think we can all look around our clubs and point out many individuals who are using their technical or financial or legal or leadership skills for the club and its projects. And I've found a couple of original ideas that I want to point out to you. Many of the clubs around the district have been getting presentations recently about the STEM Youth Explorer Academy. And that's actually a project that came out of the passion of 2 members of the Allentown Rotary Club, Mike Orban and Rolf Schleich. One is a technology geek and the other is a PhD scientist. And the SETI Institute presented to our club in September of 2020. And these two individuals saw right away what an opportunity this could be for youth in the Lehigh Valley. They put together, in conjunction with the folks at SETI, a program for underserved middle school age students. And it has a focus on STEM learning activities. And in addition, it has team building and leadership involved with it. And it even focuses on the Rotary areas of focus. The team that has been put in place for STEM is really pretty outstanding. You may recognize many of these names, but you may not be as familiar with the background or experience or classification for these people. So I'll just quickly going through these slides. You'll see the engineers, the inventors, the financial people, even a NASA individual that's involved in the project right now. And the second slide, a few more individuals, again, education, science, and an attorney as well. So a great example of pulling together all the various skills and vocations available in this case in the Rotary District to do a special project like this, which is going to have its kickoff this summer. In addition to vocations, I wanted to talk a little bit about avocations, examples of living your passion. Gail Micah from the Allentown West Rotary is a passionate bike rider. She recently completed the Erie Canal bike ride, which was not 350 miles, she said closer to 400 miles. And as president of Allentown West, she's actually in recognition of the club's 60th anniversary, riding 60 miles a month on her bike and collecting donations. So to date, she's collected over $15,000. Everyone I hope is familiar with Herb Klotz, our former district governor, and he did the Appalachian Trail Challenge over the last couple of years, where he hiked 2,190 miles and was able to raise significant funds for the Rotary Foundation. Another example that's a little bit more unique and that I suspect many of you would not be aware of, we're going back to Kutztown again, and to a classification talk. When Ellen Overcast gave her presentation at Kutztown Rotary, she talked about her enthusiasm for the paranormal. And out of that grew the first annual Kutztown Ghost Tour. It was 2 nights in October. Both nights were sold out, and they raised $3,500 for Kutztown Historical Society. So who knows what your passion can raise and bring to light. Also want to mention my club again, Allentown Rotary. We have done 4 career nights over the last year and a half in conjunction with Interact Club at DRF High School. And we also invited students at other high schools to join in. These were great opportunities given the COVID environment. These were all Zoom sessions where professionals from our club would talk about how they got into their careers. These were not formal PowerPoint presentations. These were more, what was the twisted path that got me into being a lawyer or a science or whatever career is being covered that night. So we've had science and engineering, we've had medical, we've had legal and financial career nights. And later, you're going to hear about Kutztown Rotary's Farmers Night, which they've been doing for 84 years. That's the end of our part of the presentation. We can take questions here, and I've listed our email addresses in case anyone has any questions about anything in particular that they want more information about after the talk.
Thanks, Lou. If anyone has a question, please unmute yourself and ask our first 3 presenters. Gwen, are there any questions in the chat box?
There are no questions in the chat box, but I have a couple of questions. So how does Rotary International deal with the changes in our society regarding classification and vocations? I know, we're over 100-year-old organization. There must have been some changes. So how often does this get updated? What are the changes? Does anybody know the process used to change ideas about vocations?
I'm not familiar with what the process is, but I'm confident and that it is happening. And I think we really have seen great examples of that over the last year and a half, 2 years with COVID, where many of the technology people in the committees and people that are familiar with social media have had to take on additional and new responsibilities within their clubs to help keep communication levels up and to bring the clubs, keep the clubs going on their projects and everything. So clearly, new careers have entered into the clubs, and they're being embraced.
Now, I know at one point there was a 10% rule where you could only have 10% of one particular career. And I understand that that's no longer the case. And I think that's a great improvement, because I think that could be detrimental to a club too, if you don't have more diversity. Alicia looks like she has a question.
I'm sorry I cannot join you facing because I'm all the way over here in Mexico. But anyway, I just wanted to mention to Bob Hobaugh that perhaps at some other time, we can also have a presentation on vocational service abroad. There are many opportunities from Rotary International for vocational service abroad, not only here, using the skills that Rotarians in our district, which are tremendous skills, can also be used overhead. I realize right now with the COVID and all that, things may be on hold, but at some point, perhaps we could have another one on vocational service abroad. Just an idea.
Alicia, that's a great idea. And so many of our global grant projects, including medical, maternal and child health, literacy, and other things, water and sanitation, they all spring from people's professional skills, and they apply their skills to that. So I'll talk to you about this offline. Maybe we can do some more. Thanks.
So looks like we have another raised hand, Mark from Warrington.
Yeah, as I said a little earlier, I'm a brand new Rotarian. As of last Wednesday, I was just inducted. And I'm still a little lost in some of the mechanics of kind of what you're talking about. I mean, I know what my vocation was, even though I'm recently retired. You're talking about vocational service, and I'm not sure what exactly. I mean, I know what that means. I know the definition of the words. I know the definition of the term. Can someone give me an example of what their vocation is and what they may have done? I'm a little lost.
I can give you an example, Mark. So both Gary and myself are professional project managers. So we're the project managers for the STEMIA project. So we're using our professional skills to help the STEMIA team develop the structure for the program that we're developing and that we'll be presenting at Albright College in July for underserved students. Does that answer your question?
I also can give you an example, Alicia, because I am bilingual with Spanish and English. I'm originally from Mexico. I have had the privilege and the great pleasure to be the official, in quotes, the official translator for Rotary International in 5 different occasions to countries like Colombia, Guatemala, Chile, and Colombia, and using my skills as a bilingual person. So and also the opportunity to engage other members from other areas where we go to also do service. And many of them, of course, are Rotarians. That's another example.
So medical personnel, et cetera, in addition to Alicia's bilingual skills.
Yes,
And
and
of course,
medical personnel, they all are volunteers, doctors, nurses, and our Rotarians here. Many of them take care of the picture taking, the photography, it's just a great example of how you use your vocational service, your skills in doing good for the world and for our own communities.
so we do have a question, Lou, about the Zoom mentoring. I know Gary was one of the speakers at that Interact Club on Engineers that you held last February. Who led that effort? for your
Matt
club?
Kloiber, the president-elect for Allentown Rotary, led it. And we'd be glad to, share some of the things we learned from our efforts.
And that was from Gail Micka, who is the president of Allentown
Right.
West. So you might want to connect
Yep.
with her. Okay.
Okay.
Lou, can you go back to your slide that says, what can I do? Where you have the Rotary Code of Conduct. It's a couple of slides back.
Let me see.
Yes. It has a little space over the slide that says the Rotary Code of Conduct. As a Rotarian, I will. There you go. That's the one.
Yep.
So I have found this to be a great way.
Go ahead.
There you go. I have found this to be a great way to start meetings. So, okay, we use the motto and we use the four-way test and we use various ways to start our Rotary meetings. Why not start with the Rotary Code of Conduct? So we use this at STEMIA meetings. So as Rotarian, I will, and each STEMIA meeting, we take a different piece of the Rotarian Code of Conduct. So it's kind of a different way to introduce people to the Rotary Code of Conduct and remind them, especially when you're holding meetings. Other questions, comments, suggestions? So Lou, Amy.
Great presentation, everybody who's involved in this. Thank you so much.
So
I just
Lou,
wanted to
Amy,
say I
Marlene.
joined.
Go
Don't
ahead.
go away yet, Alicia. There's more. I want to thank Marlene, Amy, and Lou for these practical suggestions and great insights on vocational service. I hope that you and your club can pick up some of these ideas and refocus on vocational service here in 2022. And now it's my real privilege to welcome Tom Culp, the president of the Kutztown Rotary Club, who will tell us about how we might celebrate a particular vocation. Tom?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the time you're giving me. So far, this conversation tonight has been focused on the vocations within the organization and how we can use those to support the service that Rotary gives us, provides us opportunities. Tonight, I want to focus on something that the Kutztown Club has been doing for a long time, and that is a celebration of a particular vocation. We have a yearly thing called Farmers Night. It's a celebration of farmers in our community. And so I want to go over a little bit of that. Let me bring up the PowerPoint. Hold on here. Share my screen. Okay. Everyone see my screen?
Good, Tom.
Okay. All right. So we'll start with why Farmers Night. As I mentioned, first and foremost, it is a celebration of the farming vocation in our community. Once again, we are the Kutztown Rotary. Some reasons for Farmers Night and why we celebrate it. Each year, the agricultural industry, particularly in Pennsylvania, generates $137 billion in economic impact. Ag in our area in Pennsylvania supports over 575,000 jobs. Berks County, which is where we're located, has over 450 active farms and supports a payroll of over $50 million. So this is an important impact on the economy in Pennsylvania and in particular in Berks County where we reside. 85 years ago, when we started this celebration, this Farmers Night has been ongoing for 85 consecutive years. When we started this, farming was the dominant industry in the area. Today, farming is still a major part of the community. As you drive from one town to another, you drive past all the farms. But it is often overlooked and just seen as I live in farm area, but you don't really, not a lot of the people are involved or feel the impact of that farm's activity. So we feel today it's even more important that we continue with this celebration of the farming industry so that we can recognize the farms and the people involved in that industry. So particularly within Berks County is the third largest agricultural production county in the state. It is in the top 100 counties nationwide for ag production with over $365 million in revenue. The old style, traditional farming, monoculture, in other words, grains, cattle and dairy, we still celebrate them. They're the core part of the farming industry, but we also look at the new agriculture, organic farms, mushrooms, viticulture, which I didn't know until now is wineries. So we have wineries as part of our event as well. How do we do this? So one thing I'm hoping you get out of this tonight is not necessarily what a farmer's night necessarily looks like, but how we, the Kutztown Rotary Club, puts together a celebration of a vocation that maybe you can take a look at some of the things we do and decide if there's a vocation in your area that you also want to celebrate. A little bit about background on Kutztown Rotary. Was founded in 1926, so we're 95 years old, and it currently supports the local communities in the Kutztown and Topton area and has, like I said, for 95 years. And I got a cat in my way, so I apologize. There we go. The Farmers Night started in 1938, has been continuous ever since then. Every year we get together and have a night celebrating the farming industry. So what have we done, or how do we keep it going for 85 years? So how do we do this? Number one, we have a team, a committee, or as most of you are aware from Rotary clubs, committees are everywhere, but we have a committee that looks and develops this night. We start a few months ahead of time in planning. We are looking at all the businesses that support the community, like the banks, the feed mills, insurance agencies, anything like that. We come up with a budget for the club to do this. We at the Kutztown Rotary do not ask any farmer to pay for the evening. We cover all the farmers' expenses for that night, food and drink. They are there at our request, and we are there to honor them. So we create a budget that will cover everyone that we have coming to that, every farmer that we invite to that event. How do we do that? Well, number one, sponsorships. The team reaches out to local businesses that support the farming industry. As I mentioned before, banks, mills, insurance companies, and we provide them advertisement at the event for their sponsorships. We also offer them opportunities to speak at the event if they wish to. The sponsors, if the sponsorships don't cover the expenses, we, the club, develop through our yearly fundraising the money to cover these expenses. So we as a club have made a commitment that we will support this event, without asking farmers to be involved in the financial part of it. And we just feel that's appropriate as we are trying to convey to the farming industry, the farming community, how much we appreciate and honor what they do for us. Well, before I get into the picture of Bob, we also determine where we're going to have the event. We generally have had it at a local grange. COVID has forced us into some outside venues. We also look at when the farming community has traditionally more time on their hands. So traditionally we have done this event in the winter, like February or March. Again, COVID has changed us to do it over the summer the last year or so. But these are things you need to understand what the vocation that you're looking to honor can do, where they're comfortable, where they have the extra time or not extra time, if you're going to look at something that works for them so that you can get the most amount of come on, Tom, the most number of people coming to it. Sorry about that. And then going forward, as we develop the program itself, we want to make sure that we provide speakers that are relevant, diverse, and interesting, so that the farmers not only are there for a nice meal, but so that they're getting information, education, and some fun out of it. So here, one of our first speakers I want to mention that we usually have is District Governor Bob Hobaugh. Bob has been a longtime supporter of this event and actually was the chairman of this committee for many, many years. And Bob gets to bring the history of the event and the importance that farming brings to the community to the meal that night, and brings a little, usually a little bit of levity as well. We try and bring local government officials in, the ones that have information on the impact to the farming community. Here you'll see Pennsylvania State Senator Judy Schwank. She's a very big advocate of the farming community and supports the Berks County area. But we try and bring someone in who can speak to the legislation and government bodies that are impacting that area. For us, it's farming, but if you were looking at another vocation, there might be other people that you might want involved. Not just the elected officials. Here we see the State Secretary of Agriculture, Richard Redding, bring them in, or people like him, to discuss the latest developments that impact the farming industry. Why doesn't it move? There we go, sorry. This young lady, MC Baker, is with Versant Strategies. They advocate for farming communities. They were involved in the meetings in the night, and we have them talking about how farm bills are developed in the legislature, what they can do as lobbyists to help the farmers, and to help the vocation get what they need out of the big bureaucracy that is the government. Besides focusing on government side, local businesses that support the farming community can bring insight to the local economy. Here is Frank Brown. He's the owner of FM Brown Mills, Rotary member with the Fleetwood Club. In this particular instance, he was introducing FFA members, that's Future Farmers of America. I'll mention them a little more later. But by bringing local businesses that deal with the farming community into the night, we're bringing more information to the farmers that maybe they don't get on a normal basis, and something that would be of interest to them. As I mentioned before, FFA, Future Farmers of America, there's the educational part of our night. We have the FFA members speak here. Victoria Brown, who leads the FFA groups at the, I believe, Kutztown and Ole school districts. She has an opportunity to speak to the latest initiatives from the local high schools, what they're teaching, what they're working on, what the kids who are interested in potentially becoming future farmers are getting to learn, and feed this back to the current farmers in the community. Here's some of the FFA members. They get to exhibit their achievements. We also use this as an opportunity to present our Students of the Month, and we give that to two of the Future Farmers of America students that night for what they've accomplished in the last few months or year. And then it also gives these young people an opportunity to be exposed to, well, here's one of the other Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture, George Gregg, gets them to hear about what's going on in the government regarding farming in the future and farming currently, and also lets them rub elbows with a few farmers, probably other than family farmers or people that they might see every day. You get to see different things. As I mentioned before, we're not just inviting cattle, dairy, and grain farmers. You'll have wineries, you'll have mushrooms, you have organics, you have hydroponics, you have all those kinds of things there. So hopefully we're also exposing some of these young people to other ideas within the industry. That all being said, you still need to make the night fun, because if it's not fun, they won't come back. So we try and provide good food. Usually we're focusing on our Pennsylvania Dutch favorites. That usually goes over very well with the local community. We also provide local wines and brews so that everyone has a good meal and enjoys the evening. Even if you're not a speaker, we try to invite local dignitaries. Here's the president of the PA Farm Bureau that's invited, just people that anything and anyone that's incorporated with the industry, with the vocation, we try and get them out, even if they're not going to speak. If they can be there and rub elbows with the local farmers and enjoy the night, it makes for a fun time for everyone. And then finally, well, not finally, but kind of finally, we also want the night just to not just be about food and people talking. We try and make it fun. Here is Dave Klein. He's provided us entertainment for singing and dancing at the end of the night. Previously, we've also had nights where we have the FFA putting on skits or showing some of the stuff they've done. So the end of the night, we're hoping that everyone goes home with a smile and remembers the night they had and got something out of it, not just educational, but informational, and also to have a good time. We try and get the word out about it so that the community's aware of it. We usually have it covered by the local press, either the Berksmont News or the Reading Eagle. We've had it featured in the Rotary magazine. So we believe this template for vocational recognition could work for any vocation. You want to identify the vocation that you feel you want to support, identify the support structure, either business, government, education, or a variety of all those things, develop a fun and interesting program around the night, invite the vocational team together, and tap sponsors to help pay for it and be involved. And then number one, have fun with it so that it becomes something that people look forward to doing year in and year out. And finally, then get the word out so that people know you're doing it, because if you do it and no one knows you're doing it, then your outreach as far as a Rotary Club is localized. You'd like to try and get it bigger than that. Thanks for listening. I'm open for questions.
Thanks, Tom. If you have questions, please unmute yourself and ask Tom whatever you have on your mind.
Tom, Frank Romano here. Just you might have mentioned it in that how many people do you get to show up versus farmers versus the rest? What's the total, and then how many farmers usually join you roughly?
Okay, traditionally we're having between 150 and 200 people, and of that number, we're probably around 100 to 120 or 120 to 140, depending on the high end, are farmers or farmer families, like the farmer and his wife, farmer wife and son, or something like that, who are active in the farm. So we're probably about 75 to 80% farm.
Very good. Very nice.
So we have a question from Gail Micka. She's asking Tom, how many farmers attend? Are you attracting younger farmer families? Do most farmers come back year after year, and do whole families attend?
So Gail, I had mentioned before, the numbers between 150 to 200, depending on the year. Most farmers do come back. I mean, once you've been invited, you're invited for good. And we do see people come back over and over again. We do have whole families attend, or maybe, as I mentioned earlier, like smaller parts of the family, husband, wife, and one of the sons or daughters are involved. And we get the word, you're not asking this question, but maybe I'll preempt the next question. We get the word out. We unfortunately have been at this for 80 some years. So we have a base that we've started with. I've only been in Rotary 4 years now. So the baseline started even before Bob was involved years ago. So we build off that invite list through word of mouth, through talking to others, but we also can use census information and contacts with some of the sponsors to find farmers that we're not aware of. So if we're reaching out to farmers for, if we're reaching out to sponsors and we deal with a bank, there might be banks that are lending or dealing with farmers that we're not aware of, and we can use that information and that channel to find those farmers or invite them as well.
So those would be the younger farmers.
Yeah, generally, because most of the old folks we know of. But yeah, as younger farmers, and not just younger farmers, but farmers that are getting into new areas. Like I said, we just started recently inviting wineries in the last 5 to 10 years. And as more and more wineries are coming online, we're finding those through other avenues and inviting them to the event.
So Amy says a lot of the members invite their farm neighbors too as guests.
Yes, that's true. The members of our club, as where we live. So we, and I apologize. Maybe I didn't mention that. We personally reach out to everyone and invite them. There's not a form letter. It's a phone call. We have phone numbers, or if we don't, we look up phone numbers, and we have our members of our club, the core team mostly, but other members that maybe aren't as involved in the core team, but know people, as Amy mentions, but personally call up each farmer and personally invite them to the event.
So other questions from folks?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for a great presentation. Both presentations were really good. Just one question with Tom right now is, right now this week is a PA farm show going on in Pennsylvania. Is it related with your club? Something connected with your club?
No, the PA farm shows put on, I don't know, by the state. I don't know who puts on the farm show. It's been put on forever. It's not related to our excuse me, it's not related to our club or our event, but it does lead into, a lot of the things that we see happening out there. The movement into different types of farming is the types of things that we see in our club that we're trying to mimic to make sure that we get a broader involvement in the farming community, get more people involved, and make it more interesting for the farmers when they do come at that night.
Yeah, thank you.
So Alicia's piggybacking on Gail's question. How do you see the future of farming in this area?
Well, I'm not a farm expert. I can help you with how we put this on. But what we have seen in the last 5 to 10 years is just a diversity in farming. It's, like I said in the very beginning, it's not just cattle, dairy and grain farming anymore. There's a lot more diversity. There's a lot different types of farming. And as I've mentioned a few times, we're trying to reach out and be inclusive and make sure that we get all those people involved, not just necessarily your old style dairy farms.
So I have a question that's similar to that. I'm always interested in the young people. So these future farmers, the ones that are involved, in the school activities, do you see them going into farming, and do you see them coming back and returning to the event too?
I haven't been involved long enough to answer that as far as
Okay.
whether they're returning, but what I can speak to, and this is personal knowledge, mostly from my sons, and they weren't involved in FFA, but they had friends and stuff like that. Most of your FFA, Future Farmers of America students, usually go on to college in some sort of farming related education. Now, that being said, it's not necessarily all like agronomy. I know some get into engineering, some get into supply chain on the farming side, but usually they have some tilt towards something that they've learned about or are interested in that helps drive the farm. It may not turn them back into a person who runs a farm, but oftentimes through friends of my sons and friends of I've had, they oftentimes are related to industries that then either support or involved in the farming industry.
Because we live practically next door to the Rodale Institute, we have a lot of information about farming right here and often attend events right there at Rodale. Is Rodale at all involved with your organization?
Rodale has been in the past a sponsor, and we have tapped them for information in the past, so that we do have an involvement with Rodale.
And DG Bob, I think you have some comments you want to make. I see you put them in the chat.
So just that, I'll give you some examples of our relationship to the farm show. And some of us are members of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. I am. I go to the farm show. I found a lot of infrastructure, people who are professionals in the farming world that we've ended up inviting to our farmers night. Not just, as Tom was saying, we have new kinds of farming, new technology, organics and other things other than monoculture, but we also have new people from throughout the state that we invite as guests. So it's a wonderful, the farm show is a real resource.
So I think we had a couple other people with their hands raised, Mark and Philip, I think. Yep. So Mark, you have a question or comment? No?
Phil?
How about Phil?
Yeah, no, I have a question. It sounds like a great resource for the farmers with speakers and I'll say available programs and things of that nature. Is there also a twist to it where you let the community know how important the farmers are back to them, back to the banks who are maybe loaning them money and things of that nature, kind of the reciprocal piece of it?
So, I mean, we are, I don't know if I'm answering this right or not, but we are, we do have the involvement of the sponsors, which are the banks, the insurance companies, the mills. So they do recognize the importance of it. And like I had mentioned to you, we tap them for information. We use them to find new farmers in the area that might not know about us, or we might not know about them. So we do try and reciprocate the farm community and involvement with the businesses and industries that support them through that, just bringing them all together in one night. So also, like some of the banks or insurance companies will have little, even if they don't speak, they might have information available that night, about loans or about insurance or something like that. They oftentimes have little kiosks, for lack of a better term, that they might have set up with information.
So Tom, Gail Micka, who's the president of Allentown West, I know she's from North Dakota, right? So she's very familiar with farms. Gail, did you want to add anything? I know you had some questions about hydroponic and indoor.
I'm not a farmer. I grew up in Fargo, but I come from a long line of farmers, and I feel like it's kind of in my blood, and I have a lot of respect for farmers and people who grow food. And one of the things that I was listening to at a past district conference was some people that were growing food hydroponically and teaching people how to do that. And are those types of farmers being included in what you're doing, and are they sharing at all some of their methods? Do they speak? They don't speak at your event.
So Yeah, so we have invited them. We do have some come that do that kind of farming, but we, at least in my short tenure, and maybe Bob with more history in the past, but we haven't had anyone at these events speak to that kind of specific farming. Again, the farmers are there to be celebrated. At this point, at least, we haven't tapped them to be the focus of the event, so.
That's right.
I
And
love
Gail,
it.
yeah, you should definitely come on out, so.
When is it?
Well, unfortunately, COVID has struck us again, so it's going to be over the summer again this year. Traditionally, like I said, it was in February, but we've pushed it. I don't know that we've finalized the date now, but it's probably going to be in July.
And this is only for Berks County?
Well, no, it's kind of our area. If you know, we reach the Kutztown Rotary Club being here on the eastern side of the county. We do have farms that are into the Lehigh County area. So it's not, there's not like defined lines around who we will or will not invite. It's just kind of our area.
Okay. I've got a couple of farmers that help out with our garden project, so maybe I'll tell them about it too.
Certainly.
Hey, thanks, Tom. That was really an inspirational presentation about how we might celebrate a particular vocation. And I hope that some of the people on this show tonight will take back the idea on how they might be able to celebrate another vocation, not necessarily farming, but what's important in their community. I want to invite you to join us for the next Showcase Tuesday in February 8th. It's going to follow the February Rotary theme, Peace Building and Conflict Prevention. Our speakers will be incoming Rotary Foundation trustee Marty P. Kelman, and from Australia, Rotary Peace Fellow Charlie Adam. Please have a great night, and remember that this Showcase Tuesday has been recorded and will be available for you later. Thanks and good night.
Good night.
Nice job. Good night.
Very
Night.
nice.
Good night.